So, hello, welcome to my PPM series, Penny Paints Minis. So today what I want to do is I want to get the base started, as much of that done as I can, and I want to get this fur blocked in. I want to see, I've got a couple of ideas for colours and I want to see how it goes. So for the soily bits, I've decided to go for these ruddy browns, and then we'll get this done, and then we'll get some highlights on it, and then maybe tone it down a little bit with some browny washes. Now for the fur, this is the darkest brown I have. I want to compare it to the soil. Now that's as dark as we can get it, and then what I'll probably do is the names are a little bit off-putting. You've got leather brown and bootstrap there, so these are more sort of leathery colours, but I think if we hit that with a black wash and then reinforce it, we may not possibly need this one, because if we go for this one, hit it with a black wash and then start to hit it again with this, and then hit some highlights with this, we may not need that third paint, but I think we'll just see how it goes. So the first thing I'm going to do is hit the soil with this, all of this little bit down here, and then we can decide. I think most of this is actually rock, but I'm going to treat this as soil, I think, and then hit the big bits as rock. So let's make a start. These are paints I've never used before, so I have no idea how they're going to come out. So after just one coat, I'm actually really happy with that. As you can see, I've hit it with very little care for anything around. Now once I come to the rocks, obviously I'll be a bit more careful, but I quite like that. I think that's quite a realistic clay soil tone. I can see a couple of bits that I missed there. So what I'll do is I'll do another coat on that once it's dried, and then I think we'll hit that with a brown shade. Okay, so next I'm going to hit the fur with the Brigade Brown. This is the dark brown that I've got, and we'll just have a little look at what it looks like with the fur. And do you know what? I think that's okay. That's quite nice. It's definitely a brown colour, so hopefully once we hit that with the brown, hopefully, sorry, with the black wash, I think hopefully it'll look okay. So I'm going to hit that again with very little care for anything that's around it, because we are going over. I'm doing the lower bits first, and then we do the raised sections. The problem is going to be getting in there. I'll do my absolute best. I'm just not sure, and certainly when it comes to highlighting. And one thing I'll be worried about is when I do the inside of the armour, how much of that brown am I going to hit? Yeah, I'm going to have to definitely get all of this fur done before I do any of this. So I'll come back when I finish that off. Okay, so I'm quite liking that fur colour, and I think by the time that's deepened down and then given a highlight, I think that'll look really nice. The actual soily bit is a little bit red, but I can go with that because it's a clay soil. But what I want to do now is just have a little look at this cloak, and I've got this woodland camo, which is from the olive green range, and I just want to see if it will work, because now is a good time, because if it doesn't work we can paint over it. So I know that by the time we've done all those browns, a lot of this will be painted over and we'll have to redo it. But I think now is a good opportunity just to have a look to see how it will fit. Come on, Mr. Shadow, you always jump up when I'm painting, don't you? So we're just using this as a kind of a sample, and I like it. What do you think, Shadow? See, I'm also now spotting areas of the brown that I've missed, so I'm going to have to repaint it anyway. So Yeah, I think that's okay. And then that way I've got my red hasn't been used. Sorry, I'm just going to have to put it on the floor. Come on, mister. Are you telling me it's bedtime? So yeah, I think that will work together. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I'll leave that there because I don't want to paint it yet because I've now started to notice some detail around the edge. So that's going to have to be, that's probably going to be some kind of yellow. I think that will be sort of embroidery, something stitched on. So yeah, so we'll continue to let that dry, and then maybe if I can get the corn red out, something similar to that red, and we'll have a little look. So the colour I'm thinking about for the armour is this ballast red. It's a little bit brighter than I was hoping, but it looks very similar to the old Citadel corn red. So let's just pop a little bit onto the armour, which is where that's going to go. Yes, a little bit pinky, isn't it? But I think if we can, we might be able to work with that. If we can dull that down. Come on, mister. You're stepping all through me paints. Yeah, I think that can be worked with. Obviously, it's a bit bright with the base coat, but there isn't really anything lower. We've got a mulled berry, which is a desaturated violet. Do you know what? I might just give that a try. But the problem with the desaturated, the mulled berry, is that's going to push it up into the purples, and I don't really want to do a purple on this one. But I'll try it out anyway. So this is the mulled berry, and I've just put it on the palette, and I think it's going to be a beautiful colour. Oh, it's still a little bit bright, but it is a little bit more the colour that I'm after. So I don't know if maybe we can go, we can maybe just give that a combo. Let's bring that in. Maybe use that as a highlight. Push that into that one maybe. I don't know. What do you think, guys? I'm not sure. But I think we've just got to sort that red out. It looks like I did watch some reviews on the Army Painter, and it did kind of suggest that, I don't know, do they go? I think that's a little bit, I mean we can shade that down, but yeah, but I still need, these paints seem to take quite a long time to dry. I had a problem with a figure before, and it was just pulling all the paint off. Unless, I don't know, maybe do I need to thin them more? But it's a nice coat. As you can see, it's a nice smooth coat gone on. But yeah, okay guys, I'll leave it for a bit and I'll share my thoughts with you. Okay, so most of this is all dry now, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a strong tone to just go into there. Now strong tone is a very dark brown, so as you see, it just brings out, just darkens those deeper recesses. And then I think I might just keep this simple, and I might just go for a little highlight of the original colour, and then possibly push it to one further. But that's certainly toned that red down, isn't it? So yeah, I think that's a good choice there. And then we just wait. I believe these tones take a little while to dry compared to things like the GW ones, but I think the results will be worth it. There we go. So that's certainly brought a bit of detail out. Okay, so while I'm waiting for the base to dry, I'm going to go in with a dark tone. I'm going to hit all of the fur with a dark tone, and Yeah, that's done the job, hasn't it? So it's going to get right deep into this, really going to darken that fur, and then just like I said about the soil, I'll then hit the highlight with the same colour again. But I think what I'll do is about 2/3 of the way down I'll bring the next colour in, and then the last colour will come in towards the edges, and I think that'll look quite nice. And it's going to be a hell of a job, but I think that if we treat each piece of fur on its own merit, so we're literally going to paint them individually, it will take a long time, but I think the results will be really worth it. So yeah, look, that's going to look really nice. So that's all the shading for the fur done, and it's got really nicely into those recesses, and it's just brought out some detail. I'm really happy with that. Now also what I've done is I was having a little play with some reds for the armour. I wasn't sure if I liked that colour, so in the end I thought what I'll do, I went for I think this is this one. I think I've got to remember now. But this is this one, but the problem is it goes into purples or violets, which I don't want. So I thought what I'll actually do is I might take the highlights into this colour, so if that makes sense. So that's that done anyway. So I've made a bit of a boo-boo, only small. As you can see, I've done all of the soily bits. The next thing I want to do is do the rock. Now when it comes to doing the dry brushing, I think I'm going to end up getting dry brush on the other. So if I do the rock first, I'll get the soil onto the rock, and if I do the soil first, I'll get the rock on. So I think what I'll do, I'm going to go for this triad for the stone, which we can dull down a little bit. I'm not sure if that's going to be the right one actually. Let me have a pause. I might have a little look at a different colour. So yeah, I think I'll go with these actually. This is from the blacks and greys range. What I tried to do was I did a conversion from Citadel. I know the Citadel system. I know certain paint ranges. So I tried to convert from there until I can work it out, recipes and things myself. But I think that's a little bit too browny, so I think we'll go for the uniform grey, and then we'll shade it down, then we'll highlight it with the ash grey, and then what we'll do is any forward facing highlights we can hit with a worn stone, just very, very gentle. So I've got my wet palette out now. This is a Red Grass Everlasting wet palette. Now I've always had trouble with wet palettes. I watch a lot of YouTube videos and people go, bang bang bang, here's a wet palette. It just doesn't seem to work so well for me, so I'm assuming it's a learning curve. But I've tried different wet palettes, and this one does seem to be the best. I've been having a little play with it. Now this hasn't been touched in over a year, and I touched some of the paint, and as you can see it is still wet after all that time. Unfortunately I've damaged the paper there, so I've ordered some more paper and it'll be with me tomorrow at the time of filming, so I'm just going to have to make do with what I've got at the moment. So what we can do is, when we have our paint, what we can do, in order to thin it, we jab it into the paper a little bit, and then that will add a little bit of water. We can always add water directly into the paint to get it going, but also when we close the lid on it, when we come back to it, it means that there's no the paint hasn't dried out, so it's quite useful in that sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint all of the rock pieces grey, and it's nice colour actually. I was about to say the coverage isn't that good, but the reason the coverage doesn't look that good is because it's not a million miles away from the primer colour. But when you then get to the parts that are covering, like if you look there, you see where I've accidentally gone over the brown, it covers that very nicely. So I'm going to put 2 nice thin coats on this, and I'll come back to you once it's all done, and I think that's going to look beautiful. Okay, so that is my rocks blocked in, and it's looking good already, I think. But what I want to do is I want to put a strong tone on, or black tone, and I'm going to use the big brush because I think I'm going to lose, by the time I finish dry brushing, I think I'm going to end up over painting on the rock. So I think I'll end up doing them again, which is going to be a bit of a problem. But then again, we could also put that down to I'm learning the sequences, because obviously I've been used to doing the lower areas before the higher areas, but in this case I need to look at what I can dry brush. If this was my dry brush, I can actually carefully dry brush that a lot easier. But these rocks, I really want to get in the edges. So, you know, we live and learn. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply a wash, not too heavy. I just want to make sure I get into all of those recesses, like so. And I'm going to keep this quite simple actually. I'm just going to do a two-stage highlight. So once this is all done, I'll dry brush it in the original colour, with the original grey that I've just used, which I haven't got to hand, so I can't remember. I still haven't got used to the names. And then the forward highlights, the front of the model, I'll hit that with a brighter highlight. So I'll get on with these, and I'll see you at the next stage. So while I'm working on that, waiting for that, sorry, I'm just going to there's my base there, it's wet and it's drying. So I'm just going to work on my fur. Now, what I want to do is get my paint a little bit thinner than normal. I'm going to take my glasses off for this. And I'm just going to get all of these pieces of fur. Let's find a nice easy one to work with. And I'm just going to hit the upper surfaces of them. Okay, it's a subtle change, and I can't get a really good point on my tip. So we're just going to hit all of these outer edges, all of the raised detail. Make sure we don't get on the inside. And at this point you might be saying, well, it's not made a lot of difference. It actually has. Not a massive difference, but it just helps to pick out that detail. It's going to be a long job. Just trying to get enough just to show you on camera. Okay. Just help just to bring those details out just a little bit, and what we'll do is we'll continue adding colours onto this fur until we've got the result that we want. Okay, so I'm going to carry on doing this, and I'll come back when I'm finished. Okay, so this is the fur on the head complete, and it's a lot easier than you think, because the paint has a slightly different finish from the wash. You'll see that the colour it'll change a little bit. So has it made a massive difference? No, it hasn't. But if you compare it to, say, the tail, which I haven't touched yet, you can see there is. And it's just a slight colour change. What we're after, if you look at any object, let's say I'm trying to find something shiny, There we go. So if you look at my my sander hair, you'll see you've got various shades. You've got a dark red there going to a very light red there. But if you look at the colour transition, this is probably a really bad example, but you'll see that there isn't, the colour change is quite subtle. It doesn't go from one colour to another. So what we're aiming to do is just shift that colour as it comes down, as it hits the highlights. And what we'll do is we'll add a lighter colour on top of that later on, and then we'll just build that colour up. However, we are focusing primarily on the base. We're painting the other bits just in between bits of the base. Okay, so next up I'm going to just try and bring some of that detail out on the mud, and then we'll do some on the stone. So I'm going to go back to my original mud colour, which is oak brown, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little tiny bit on my brush, and then I'm going to wipe off as much as I can. It is almost like a dry brush, but it's a little bit heavier. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my glasses off first. I'm just going to run the brush over. This is very similar to what I was doing with the fur, but I'm being not quite so precise. I'm just catching all the highlights, and obviously I'm trying to avoid the rocks. Trying to avoid the rocks, and I'm just not putting a lot of. I'm actually using a flatter brush, and I'm using the sides of the bristles, just to sort of run over the top, and then hopefully we'll pick up the detail. So you'll now have three colours. You'll have the recesses, which are quite dark, and then you'll have the parts where the shade hasn't hit so hard but has also been missed by the brush, and then you'll have the parts that have been hit by the brush. Okay, a little bit too much on my brush there, so I'm just doing some careful dabbing. Okay, and just any raised areas, just hit with the side of the brush. I'm still going to worry about the dry brushing that I'm doing later. Okay, and if I bring that up nice and close, hopefully you'll start to see that's quite detailed. In fact, I'm now actually starting to is that actually soil? Is it small rocks? But I'm going with soil. Okay, that's all we have to do. Right then, so I'm going to start dry brushing now. Now I need to think about the light source. So what I've done is I've popped the model on roughly where I think he's going to go. Now I like the light source to come from the front about 45 degrees and about 45 degrees up. So if he's facing forwards, the light will come from about there. So what I've done is I've just put a little masking tape blob just to tell me where the light source is coming from. So when I come to do the highlights, I'll know these need to be highlighted more than these, because these are obviously going to be in shadow. Now, next problem. This is my top coat, my first coat. Now normally I'd be looking at doing, say, a 3-stage paint with each one increasing in value. I've never used these paints before. I don't know what the jump is like. Now if you look at these two, there doesn't seem to be a massive jump. I will point out these bottles are not perfectly clear. So looking at the colours through the bottom doesn't necessarily mean anything. What they do recommend is actually painting the top, which I will start doing. So each time I open a bottle, I'll paint the top. But I'm not sure that jump is too high. So I may actually want to build up and then actually use an extra highlight, and that might be my final highlight. It might even be this one, and I think if we end up going to this one, I think that might be too much, but you never know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the first dry brush up, and that will be all over, and then the third one I'll do just mostly on the front, and then if I feel I need another one then I'll continue, but I won't get like right at the back, and I'll just keep pulling those highlights forward until I'm happy with the final result. So for a very, very quick lesson, I'm going to be using this. No, I'm not. I'm going to be using this. This is my dry brush of choice. This is the smallest one I've got. This is a makeup brush. I think they're absolutely fantastic, and they're so cheap. I mean, they'll last. I've had this dry brush for ages. Let me show you the full set. This is the set that I got. I keep looking out for things like this. This came from one of those. In the UK, we have shops like Home Bargain, Pound Stretchers, Poundland. Poundland don't sell things for £1 anymore. They sell them for whatever price. So I think I got this from Poundland for like £1.50 or something stupid. But I've had this a long time, and for me it's multi-purpose because I use these 3 for dry brushing. Very rarely use this big one, but there'll be situations where I will. Most of the time I've used this one. As you see, it cleans up really nicely, and then that goes on there like that. And then this one, I have a tendency to use this for cleaning. So if I've got a model that sat there for a while, when I come back to it, I'll just get all the dust off, and it's nice and soft and it won't break anything off. And I love the way that you put the lid back, because obviously like getting that lid back on is quite difficult. So you push this sleeve up and then you push the lid on, and then when you bring it back down, it's nicely in there, and that's why these are in good condition. So yeah, so this is the dry. These are, in my opinion, these are one you want to look out for. They do proper dry brushes, but the price of them, they're almost the same amount of money as a really good dry brush, a good paintbrush. So very, very brief lesson in dry brushing. What we want to do is we want to get some paint onto the palette, just a little. That's probably enough to do 10 times what I want to do. And then what we'll do is we'll get our brush, we'll just put a little bit. I like to just put a little bit on the tip, and then I've got myself a piece of kitchen roll. There's 2 ways to do this. This is now becoming the unpopular way, but I'm working on doing what they call a texture palette, but I'll talk about that another time. And what we're going to do is we're going to wipe off as much as we can, okay, and then we just do a little test on our hand, and I don't know if you can see there, there's just a little bit come off. That might be too much. That's probably about right. I've had to push quite hard to get that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rub over the top of the surface, and what that's going to do is it's just going to hit the higher bits. And I don't know if you can see the difference. These paints are very close together color wise, so I think we might be doing 3, maybe 4 colors for this. There's not a lot of difference in the color, but it's all very subtle. Can you see those details are really starting to come out? So I'll do an all over dry brush on this, on everything, and then I think the next color we'll hit, we'll just focus on the front, and then we might need a 4th one just to sort of hit it from there. Okay, so I am really happy with how that's turned out, but looking at the colors, what I've done is I painted all the tops, and I can get more of an accurate representation of what they're going to look like. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to go up to the 4th highlight. So with this last color, what I did is normally when you dry brush, you come in from all directions to get all of the detail. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in with this next one, Dryad Brown, pop a little bit on the palette. Yep, trying to remember which one it was. But this time I'm going to do exactly the same, but I'm going to come in from one direction only, which is coming in this way towards the light source. So I'm just going to go that way only, and that means that some of the detail behind or maybe on the sides won't get caught so much, and that will start to bring in the illusion of a light source. I'm doing quite well with the overpaint. I'm not getting too much on the stone, and so I might just get away with this. So like I say, we'll just pull it in the one direction, and I think this isn't going to work so well for me. This is definitely going to get hit on a lot of the stone. And now you can see more of the detail is starting to be pulled up, but you can also see that we're beginning to get a light source coming in. Okay, so I've just realized I've told you all wrong. You're not pulling the brush from there, you're pushing the brush from the front back. So you'll see that there's your dry brushing from the front, and there it is from behind. So you'll see you just got a little bit more highlight. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a slightly lighter dry brush. So have a look at your light source, and whatever you can see, let me try and get this to the camera. So that's roughly the angle you're going to see it from. So you'll see that all this mud there that you can see, you want to paint. This bit back there, you leave that alone, because obviously the light source won't be hitting it. So basically hold it. Obviously you're looking at a different angle from me, but I would say, let me see if I can. So you're going to see it roughly that angle. So what you can see, you're going to hit that with a higher one. So let's see what happens. And this one looks like it's a little bit of a jump, so we have to be careful. So, and if it isn't bright enough, because don't forget that when you paint, once it dries, do you know what, I've not got enough on there. Got to get that right in the bristles. That's better. So once it dries, it will darken a little bit. Okay, don't know what's going on with this paint. Normally it's been sat on the palette for 5-10 minutes, but normally the thicker the paint is, the better it is. So there we go. That's really hitting. Now these bits are quite hard to hit, so I'm going to have to kind of do it backwards. So there it is from the front, there it is from the back, and if you look at these pieces and you look at those pieces, they're completely different. So it's supposed to give you an illusion of a light source. I'm just kind of debating whether to go one more colour up. Right, I'm very tempted to put a little bit on those, but I'm just not going to. So there we go. So now you can see we've got two different colours of mud. We've got this bit and we've got that bit. Right, I think what I'll do is I'll leave that 10-15 minutes and I'll wait for it to completely dry, and then we'll see how the colours just gone down a little bit, and if it doesn't give us the effect we want, we'll hit it a little bit more. But yeah, that I'm happy with. As it is right now, I am happy. So we'll either work on the stones next, or we will work some more on that mud. Right, so there is the finished base. That I am rather happy with. It's a little bit red, but I think that will be fine. You get different types of soil. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do a bit of quality control, and I think I've done okay. So any areas like there, for example, just where the dry brushing has caught the stone, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over that and we'll cover it up. This is all going to get covered anyway with the overbrush. There's a little bit there, and I think generally that's about it. This stone, just being careful, just painting where the brown has gone, and there's a little bit there where the I've actually painted it too much, so just give it a bit of quality control. This whole stone has pretty much been painted brown, and I think we'll get away with that. So it saves me having to repaint all of the stone. Had I kind of sat and thought about it, I wouldn't have actually painted the stone until now. There we go. I think that's everything. Right, so oh, there's a bit more. There's actually quite a lot more there. Yeah, these harder to reach areas where the soil is, you're inevitably going to get some overpaint on the onto the stone. But I think that's got it all. A little bit there I don't like. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm not going to show you and explain, because it's exactly the same as the brown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that kind of overpaint with our original base colour, deep grey. Then I'm going to do a little dry brush all over with this uniform grey, and you see the step is quite big actually, so that might do the job. And then we'll do directional, just going backwards. We'll do a dry brush with that, and then what we'll do is we can hit the extreme highlights on the front with this company grey, but we'll judge it after the third colour, because that might be too much. Again, I don't know these paints, and when I come back you'll see these tops have been painted as well. So here is my almost complete base, very nearly almost complete. So I made a bit of a boo-boo. What I should have done is gone through the highlights like that. Now somewhere along the lines I accidentally skipped one. I think I skipped this one. So I think I went from the uniform grey straight up to ash grey into company grey. I'm sure that's what I've done, because it doesn't seem to be a lot. Sorry, yeah, I've skipped something. I think I actually did those three, so that forced me to use the fourth highlight as white. Now obviously white is going to be the next step up from company grey, which is a completely different set. Like, this is the blacks and greys, and this is the warm greys and whites. So I've gone from one set straight into another. So I was being very, very, very careful, and I'm going to get my little pointy stick out, aka cocktail stick. So what I did is I held at a 45-degree angle to do those last highlights. Rather than hitting everything that I can see, I just hit anything that was really sharp, like the point of this there. You see along the edges of those rocks. Just tried to keep it quite gentle, and do you know what, I think it's done the job, and I'm rather happy with that. So if you're looking at it from there, you can see it looks completely different from there, and it just represents a little bit of light source. Now I have got one addition to do to this, well, two actually, before I call this base finished. One relies on an Amazon guy coming, and he's going to be here any time between 30 minutes ago and another hour and a half, so I'll have to do that in a cut, but I'm going to finish this off by painting the base black. I might be a bit premature, and I'm just debating whether or not to do a layer of matte varnish over the top. That'll protect it, and that will matte everything down a little bit, and then we'll call that done. That was going to be my main focus today. So we've done quite a bit of work, some work on the fur. This is things that we do in between waiting for things to dry. So we'll focus on the fur next week, and we'll really bring those out in the same way that we have done there. This is mostly fur, and then having a little play with some reds, and then I think I'm going to go with that green. And then we have a lot of wood to do. I've got some ideas for the wood, and then there's a lot of metal on this arm. This is the colour I'm going to go for with the armour, I'm thinking. And then we have the other arm, and then obviously when we do, I'll do this in a different kind of wood than the shield, and I think it's going to look pretty fab. So I'm planning on getting this done in another 2 videos. So yeah, all I can do now is get on with this base, and one little addition to it, which I will do at the end. You will see it. What I'll do is me painting it black is going to replace the video for the end credits, so you'll get the end credits in a little bit. And what I'll do is I'll be painting the black base during the credits, and then I'll just put the little final touch on right at the end. Unfortunately, that means you're going to have to watch the credits.